So I'm here with Regina, and we are celebrating the retreat house. 5 years we've had the retreat house, and Regina Dawn Akers had said yes to being interviewed about the retreat house. And the reason why I thought it was really important to have her be part of this celebration is because the inspiration came through her. So, my very first question to you, Regina, is could you tell us about the inspiration having to do with the retreat house? Why? Why? And just maybe some background information, history, challenges, pitfalls, anything that comes to your heart or mind to share. We'd be so grateful to hear from you and your perspective since you were such an integral part of the retreat house coming into our world. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Regina.
All right. Thank you, Sina. It's lovely to be here. Before I start talking about the retreat house, just to give one little necessary part of background, which it'll be clear why I had to give that later. But I was living in North Carolina when I received guidance through a dream to move to Pueblo, Colorado. And I was not told why I was moving to Pueblo or anything, just to come. So by the time the retreat house guidance came, which was, of course, years later, I was living in Pueblo, Colorado. And in fact, I believe the guidance came in the year 2014. I had moved here in 2009. And what we had done in 2013 was start awakening together. In fact, we opened our doors in July of 2013 with our first weekly gathering. And we had our first fall retreat in the fall of 2014. We had it in Santa Barbara at a Franciscan monastery. And it was actually, we had a weekend retreat with some guest speakers. And then that was followed by a 5-day silent retreat. So I was on this 5-day silent retreat in Santa Barbara at this Franciscan monastery. And it was a lovely week. The weather was lovely. The silence was lovely. It was just a lovely week. And one day I went for a walk outside of the monastery, walked a couple of blocks, and I came to this white church, which was a St. Clair church. And I don't know if everybody knows St. Francis, but St. Francis had a female partner, not a romantic partner, but a spiritual partner named Claire. So this church was named after her. And I felt this prompt to go inside the church. And the truth is, I expected the door to be locked, but when I went up on the porch and turned the handle, it opened. And so I went into this church, and I was the only one there. And I walked to the front of this little church. And when I got to the front of this little church, I was just overcome with this sense of devotion and this sense of surrender. I dropped to my knees right there in the church. And what seemed to happen was what I call an emptying. It was like all these things came up in my mind for me to look at and to let go of. I let go of my home in Pueblo. I let go of my daughter. I let go of my money. I let go of any hopes or dreams I had for the future. It was just this, I don't remember what else came up, but it was things coming up, looking at them and letting them go. And it was just an emptying. And when I got to where I was completely empty, this guidance came in. It didn't actually have words, so I put the words to it. It was a knowing without any words to it at all. But the words that feel like the best way to describe the knowing was that I was to create an environment where everyone could go to take their next step with God. Those are the very best words I can put to it. I was to create an environment where everyone was to go, where everyone could go to take their next step with God. And I don't know how long I was in that church. I don't know how long this whole thing took, maybe 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. I just don't know. But when it was complete, I got up and I left the church knowing that I had said yes to this guidance. And I was walking back towards the St. Francis Monastery. I probably walked a couple blocks when it hit me. I hadn't asked where. I mean, I had just let go of everything. I could go anywhere in the world to create this environment, and I hadn't asked where. And I was actually walking, looking down at the sidewalk, and as soon as I realized I hadn't asked where, I looked up, and right in front of me was a street sign. It was Pueblo Street. And I just busted out laughing because, Pueblo is where I live, right? So I had just let go of everything, my daughter, my money, my home. I would have gone anywhere in the world and done this. And I was sent right back here. I just thought that was amazing. So when I originally started the search for the retreat house, my circumference was pretty small, really sticking to the more proper Pueblo area, although it did extend out into the country outside of town, but more proper Pueblo area. And I think it was probably 2015, but I could be wrong. Yeah, it's a year later. That's probably right. 2015, maybe 2016, who knows? But it was in the fall. It was after a fall retreat again. And we'd had another fall retreat at another Franciscan monastery. This one was in Colorado Springs. And one of our speakers was John Mark Stroud. And Jacqueline and John Mark Stroud and I went down to the Spanish Peaks hiking one day. And we were sitting on the West Peak looking out over the town of Veta. And John Mark Stroud said, "That's where you should have your retreat house." And my first thought was, no, I was told Pueblo. But then, we went to the store and I noticed the newspaper was the Pueblo newspaper. And, I started noticing that there's not much in that town, and that when people need to go to the doctor, they drive to Pueblo. One person even said when he gets his car washed, he drives to Pueblo, and it hit me. If you look at the whole wide world, this is still the Pueblo area, right? And so I said, okay, I'll open up to that. I didn't restrict it to that, but I just extended my boundary. And then at some point, we created a subcommittee to do a search for a retreat house. And this woman named Lisa was the chair of the subcommittee. And she's the one that literally declared, we're not looking anywhere but Veta. And I felt okay with that. I said, okay, that sounds good. So at that point, we dropped looking closer to Pueblo, and we began looking only in Veta. There was one particular place that we really loved it, but it was over $3 million. We were having a fundraiser. We weren't anywhere near that. And in fact, I don't even know if we had 100,000 yet. We've been having a fundraiser for a few years, and we had raised some money, but not anything like that. But we visited it a few times, and we remained open to the possibility that some miracle could come and enable us to buy this place. But what ended up happening, of course, is it sold to someone else. Interestingly, the very day it sold is when I became aware of the place that is our retreat house today. It was next to a lake. And actually that lake is next to another lake. So it was next to two lakes. It was right on the edge of town. So people could go into town. If they, wanted to go into town, people could go out towards the lakes. If they wanted to go out towards the lakes, everything that's around Veta, all of the mountains and everything, were just as close to there as they were to this $3 million place. And although it only had 3 bedrooms, the person who owned it before us was a quilter, and had this huge room where he did his quilting. And we were able to divide that into 4 private, smaller rooms. We call it the ladies' dorm, but it has 4 private, sweet rooms with beds and dressers and all of that. So we were able to turn it into basically a 7-bedroom place. Has a huge deck, gorgeous views. There's a little garage that we would like to turn into a chapel someday. There's a little area we would like to turn into a garden, a contemplation garden. There's another area which we could either do additional parking or we could put a labyrinth there. So we're still expanding, but we've had many retreats there. As far as I know, it's doing what it was meant to do. It's helping people take their next step with God. And by the way, we didn't have the money for this place when we found it. I think it was around 330,000, give or take a little bit. And again, we probably had a little under 100,000. I sat down and figured out what we could easily afford for a mortgage, and I figured 500 a month. And at that current interest rate, it meant we could borrow 80,000. So it takes us to 180-ish, but we needed 330. So I actually called a special member meeting. I showed pictures to the members and I asked them to donate, and they did. We had people donating $1,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. We even had one person donate $100,000. And within 7 days, we raised the money to buy that retreat house. Even though we had an $80,000 mortgage, I think we had it for a 20 or 25-year term, people just kept right on donating. We paid that mortgage off in 2 years. So it feels pretty much like it was meant to be. It was too easy not to be meant to be. Like I did my part by following my guidance. The team members that helped me did their part by doing the search, by buying the furniture, by, all of that. But most definitely the universe did its part. It was a team effort, both the visible and the invisible, or it could not be, right? So, yeah. You have other questions? That's the short of it.
One thing that surprised me, definitely because we're a non-dual community, had one of the things I remember hearing many, many, many years ago about the retreat house was you had a vision board process. Yes. And it was almost like dreaming it into reality. So if you just speak on that,
yeah,
and
sure.
how we can navigate that.
Yeah, sure. I was actually guided to do that. Like that was a part of when it was given to me to create this environment where everyone could go. A part of that was envisioning it, working with the universe in that way to call it into being. So, but one thing I want to point out is I did not create a vision board for my self-will. It wasn't like, oh, here's something I want, and then create a vision board. I was guided to do this, right? So this was a surrender. And in fact, I mentioned this one $3 million place that we all really, and it was sweet. The river ran right through it. There's no way there wasn't anything sweet about this place, right? But one person really wanted me to focus my visioning on that place, to bring that place into manifestation. And I couldn't find it in my heart to do that. I felt like this was God's process, consciousness's process, whatever you want to call it, the Tao's process, not mine. And I wanted to remain surrendered. So even though I envisioned us having a retreat house, my visioning was generic and not specific. I wanted the specifics to come from God. I didn't want them to come from me. So I was envisioning that, yes, we will have a place that is a perfect environment for people to come to and take their next step with God. But I couldn't say I envisioned that place. That felt like taking control, and taking control never felt right to me in this entire process.
I just think that's gorgeous, and how intimate the whole experience and how Holy Spirit or inner wisdom guided you through the whole thing from seemingly unseen to the seen. So thank you for that. I'm sure those who listen to this retreat house celebration video will just get a delight out of hearing that story, because I remember when you first said it, I was just like, wow. Another thing that comes to mind is right around the time when you all were getting ready to purchase the place in Veta, there were fires burning.
Oh yeah.
Colorado, there was some Colorado fires. I think maybe the third worst fires burning. And I really would love to hear intimately how this particular event, I mean, because I know how possibly this one would respond, but then I just want to know like how that challenge and how you were able to move forward, how Holy Spirit helped you, enter any wisdom that came through to help you know, hey, no, this is still guidance. So if you want
Yeah.
to,
Well, it's interesting because the fire that you speak of ended up burning 109,000 acres. It was called the Spring Fire. And it actually started the day after I discovered. Remember, I told you when this other place closed, that's when I saw this retreat house. And I went and looked at it, and from the outside, I didn't go inside, but looked at it, looked at the lakes, the views, all that. And I said, oh my God, this is perfect. Went back, got my friends. They were all staying with me at Two Fox Cabins. We were all in town that week because we were hoping to go look at this bigger place. And took them by it, and they all said, oh my gosh, that's perfect. So we made an appointment with the realtor to look at it the next day. And the day that we looked at it with the realtor, that's the day the spring fire started. It actually started on the other side of the mountains, but it did jump over to our side of the mountains. And in fact, it jumped over in the evening time after we had made our offer. And, there were a lot of questions. First of all, a lot of people feared that Veta itself may burn down. It's a very small town, and the fire at first was heading straight for us. It eventually turned, but it was coming this way. So there was one thought is Veta going to burn down? But also the people we were buying it from had just built a house out in the mountains, and the fire was definitely burning around their house. So their question became, and this is a brand new house that they just had built, and their question became, is our new house going to burn down? Will we be able to sell it? So they did not accept our offer right away. It wasn't a no. It was we got to wait and see what's going to happen here. And so it took a few weeks for that. That fire was burning for a bit of time. It took a few weeks before the flames were out and we knew that their house was safe. The fire had actually gone around their house, but because it had just been built, when you first build a house, you have torn down all the trees and everything around it, and it's just surrounded by dirt, right? There's no landscaping or anything. So because it was a new house and there was nothing right there, no fuel close to the house, the fire went around it. So they owned like 30, 35 acres. All their land was burnt, but their house was fine. So they decided to go ahead and move out there, and they accepted our offer. And we were supposed to close on that house in August of 2018. But in August of 2018, an amazing hailstorm, a huge hailstorm came. It destroyed roofs and windows and everything all over the town of Veta, including the retreat house, or what was going to be the retreat house. The roof had to be replaced. The windows had to be replaced. The siding had to be replaced, and it just banged the heck out of the house. And so, and of course, this was now going to be through their insurance because they were the owners the day of the hailstorm. So we had to delay it again so that a number of things could be fixed, and so that a number of processes could be put in place where if it couldn't be fixed by the time closing happened, that it would continue to be fixed after we were the owners. So that took a long time. One thing that's really interesting, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but Jacqueline, you asked how Holy Spirit guided. I don't remember the details, or I would share them, but there was something our banker wanted us to ask for from the seller. And I think we knew in our gut that this could be a deal breaker. I don't remember what it was, but we knew in our gut that this could be a deal breaker. And I, by the way, should tell you that, I'm an extremely honest, up and up, let's follow the rules kind of person. I was literally guided to not ask the seller for this thing, whatever it was, and hope the banker forgot she asked us to do it. And I even told Jacqueline, I said, Jacqueline, I've never done anything like this in my life, but here's what I'm being guided to do. Just don't do that and hope the banker forgets. And she did forget. And I can't even remember what it was. If I did, I would share, but it was something she was saying, you have to do this or I won't loan you the money. And we just ignored that, per guidance. It felt guided to me. And she forgot and the deal went through. So I thought that was kind of interesting because there's a place in NTI where it talks about rules. This is in NTI Acts, and it talks about rules, and it talks about how you need to follow guidance over the rules, right? But my guidance has always been, it's never asked me to not follow rules. Like when we started Awakening Together, the guidance was follow the law. So even though that's in NTI, I had never had the personal experience of genuinely being guided not to follow the rules. This was the first and only time. But the deal went through. So, and the banker did forget, and, all of that. So occasionally it's interesting to know that guidance can come along that can be, you think of Ramana Maharshi. Ramana Maharshi, when he went to Arunachala, was guided. His brother said, take this money and pay my tuition. He was guided to take the money and not pay his brother's tuition, and instead pay for a train ride to Arunachala. And when he got there, he actually threw the leftover money in the water. So I certainly don't justify dishonesty or justify, anything like that. But occasionally guidance can be very surprising. It can be different than what we would normally expect as good or right. And this was the one time I did experience that. So that's a little bit of an interesting part of the story to me.
That is interesting on all parts. And I feel like as we're celebrating the retreat house and the 5 years that we've had it, which, wow, 5 years already. And it feels like we're celebrating guidance and we're celebrating miracles, no matter how they show up. And what I'm seeing too is that even when there's guidance, even when it's so clear, so obvious, challenges come up, little things that we never expected, and sometimes big things that we never expected. And yet when it's guidance, there will be a way through. So that's what I'm saying. As we wrap up this interview, and especially for those maybe perhaps have never been to La Veta, have never been to the retreat house, is there anything specifically you'd like to share from your heart about perhaps them embarking on this journey and taking their next steps with God, which really feels like the purpose? This is the purpose of the retreat house.
It is the purpose of the retreat house. That, I don't feel it has, I'm pretty, like I said, I'm a follow the rules kind of person. You know what that includes? Follow the guidance kind of person. So if the guidance is, create an environment where everyone can come to take their next step with God. Again, I put the words to it, but that was still the guidance. To me, that's the purpose of the retreat house. It has no other purpose. It's not a place to go on vacation. It's not a place to go and socialize. Don't get me wrong. We have fun when we're there together. We definitely do. Here in Awakening Together, we're very close, even though we're all over the world meeting in Zoom. We're very close because we share so personally. And it is so fun to get together and be able to touch and hug and talk and eat together. So fun does happen there. But that is not the purpose. The purpose is to take our next step with God. And there are lots of things there that help with that. One is the environment. We have created that environment. The retreat house has symbols around it that when your eyes land on those symbols, they remind you of your purpose. The beauty of the area is incredible. It's incredible how beauty can help take you deeply within, help you contemplate, help you forget about your day-to-day worries so you can focus on your true desire more. And of course, we have retreats there with curriculums and teachers that help you look at things that you want to look at or answer questions you want to answer. We have a little library there with books that you can read and contemplate. I mean, it's completely set up to help individuals take their next step with God. And I think there's two primary ways of doing that. One is, of course, attending one of the retreats, but I think it's a lovely place to go when there's not a retreat. Just go on your own, stay there, plan to spend time in contemplation, in meditation, maybe walking, going out on a hike somewhere or walking around the lakes or whatever, and just spend time alone. It can do a lot in a week to get out of your normal routine, whatever that normal routine is, because to some degree, all of our normal routines can be or are distracting from our purpose. So it can really take you leaps and bounds to take a week or 2 weeks, or one person even went 6 weeks once, to get completely out of your normal routine and say, I'm going to focus on my purpose. I'm going to focus on truth realization. I'm going to focus on God, however that feels for you, and to do that. And that's really what the retreat house is for. So even though we do have retreats, I would highly recommend going when there's not a retreat, just for a solo time alone, when you're focusing on purpose without the distraction of your everyday environment. And of course, we have caretakers there who will help to make sure that your experience is the kind of experience you need it to be.
And that feels like the heartbeat of why the retreat house? What's the purpose? Now we know, to take our next steps with God. So thank you, Regina, for taking the time to share with us a little bit of background, a little bit of history, the purpose, the why, as we celebrate 5 years with the Awakening Together Retreat House. And
thank you, Sina.
Thank you. So I am joined for this interview with Jane Sobel and Pieter van Krooyen. They are our retreat house caretakers, and we're so happy to be joined with both of them. And they are going to tell us all about what it's like in a day in the life of the Awakening Together Retreat House that is in La Veta, Colorado. So we're going to get to hear straight from them. And so, Jane, I would like to invite you first just to speak from your heart on what it's like. What is it like to be a caretaker there in the retreat house? And in a day, kind of give us a glimpse and a picture and an overall what it's like in the day in the life of the retreat.
Yeah, Pieter and I were joining earlier, and we probably will kind of just go back and forth because what that looks like goes back and forth with who does what and when. But really, like when people are it starts when people are signing up for a retreat. So that's kind of like when it really starts. And the joy of just like when somebody's registering for a retreat, whether they're coming to lodge at the retreat house or coming just to a retreat, I feel like that's when it starts. And and I just love that part of it, like right from the beginning, communicating with people and their excitement about coming here, especially if it's for the first time, and just sort of not knowing what to expect, and just kind of keeping that link from that time until they actually come. And so that's kind of where it starts. So it hasn't even, it's not even a day in the life quite yet, but then, so airport, right?
Yeah, then mostly it starts with getting people from the airport, mostly from the airport. I mean, there are people who rent a car and come by themselves, but the most people actually use the shuttle. What I love to do is actually that people come in the car and you have a connection with people. You have a conversation with people, and actually more enjoying with people. And I think that is the most important thing from the whole retreat, actually, that people start to join. And we are the first phase, of course, but that's funny. This morning, I really realized joining is the mystery of oneness. We all looking for oneness, but joining is the mystery of oneness. And I thought, oh, wow, that's actually so beautiful. So, and before we came to the retreat house, I have to a little bit say about myself. I'm from Holland. You hear my accent. I struggle still with the language. Sometimes I make words up, but it's not a problem at all for joining. And I see that actually that is the, if you put it in a nutshell, I think that is the journey I am on, and I feel that people are, if then people are leaving, that there is something happens, with the joining. That is, we have all kind of teachings, and it's very important too, but it cannot replace the joining, what is actually the goal of the learning.
Yeah, it kind of integrates. Like people often say how helpful it is, whatever the teaching is, or satsang, or whatever's happening downstairs in the meditation room, the contemplation room, the retreat space, then coming upstairs for a meal, and the joining that happens and the learning from each other, like based on whatever was integrated, or I guess that is kind of like the integration time. And I feel like so much is learned from each other after the session. So like often Peter and I aren't downstairs, we're in the kitchen, yet we learn so much about either what happened during the retreat or the session through what everybody else is sharing. And it might be something almost completely unrelated, yet that would be the thing that sticks with you. But going to rewind a little bit, like when people come to the retreat house, so Peter pulls up with the AT ride minivan, and some people have said, shared their experience coming from the airport. Somebody shared recently that they were like, I wonder why they got a retreat house out here. Because as you're driving to the retreat house, like it takes about an hour and 40 minutes from the airport. You drive through all kinds of places, but then all of a sudden the views are just absolutely stunning. And then you get to Veta and to where the house is and the view, and people are just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Like I had no idea. And people have actually come to the retreat house or to a retreat, but lodged somewhere else. And then they come to the retreat house and they're like, oh, if I knew it was like this, I would have, tried to lodge here instead, because I don't know what people think it is, but it's just a sweet place to be. So people come in and they get settled. It's a lot for people to travel. A lot of times it's like a full day of travel for people. So they get in and they're full, tired, and kind of bleary and probably jet lagged or like some kind of a time difference. But we usually have something to eat and a lot of information to share. So it's trying to not give them too much, but make sure they know what they need to know before they go to bed.
You see the administration side is Jean-Marie, and we learn not to overwhelm people with too much paperwork direct in the beginning. And so that's important. For me, it's also important, and I love to share that too. It is a lot in one moment, before the food have to be bought. We have to do shopping, we have to cooking, welcome people, answering questions people may have. And then between us, that is also important to see, okay, sometimes we misunderstood each other, and that can bring stuff up. But we also make the choice to be happy if there is something what comes up, what is not in line, we misunderstood each other in the moment, but to be not afraid for that. And I think that is also an important part, that we are not afraid for misunderstanding of each other or pushing your button even. So, but that is welcome to look at it without fear. And I think that is also what we learn by time. And I believe even that if we are not afraid for that, or you beam that out, we're not afraid to make mistakes and fail even, not afraid for that. And so I want to share that, because I think that if you are in a group, if people come into a retreat, we are a group, things happen. But if there is no fear, or if there's a choice made to be not fearful for that, then another ball game can start. That we go deeper in ourselves, and there we discover the source we all are, and that is love. And I want to say that.
Yeah.
I feel like as you're sharing, Peter, it's such a joy to hear how everything that you and Jane do in regards to the Awakening Together Retreat House is like a lesson to be learned and lived via awakening. And I love how my heart, as you were sharing, and that's how I felt in both of your presence when I was there for a recent retreat. I was there for the trustee retreat. And it feels like as you're sharing, the heart wants to soften. And it feels from that place, we can hold the space. And what a joy to be in each other's presence as we're holding this space. And it feels like that is a gift both you and Jane give as caretakers. So thank you. I want to say for all of us on behalf of Awakening Together, thank you for holding the presence and being able to be that beacon of holding that space.
Thanks, Sina.
Thank you, Sina. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it is true. Everything is for healing, for mind training, for whatever, but so there might be something completely different happening downstairs than up here, but we're all doing the same thing.
Yeah, we all doing the same thing. I love to say that you say that, Jane. Yeah.
When this is like day one, so people come, they kind of get settled into their space and have something to eat, and then once the retreat starts, first of all, the retreat house is in silence from 9 p.m. till 11 a.m. or till the retreat starts. So it's a really nice time to just have that inward communion and just to be. And actually, so breakfast is in silence also. And then people just kind of softly make their way downstairs. And then whoever the facilitator is, when they come in, or people that are coming to the retreat that aren't staying at the retreat house, they kind of enter in silence. It's just a beautiful time of the morning, and make their way downstairs for the retreat to start. And then it's kind of, our guests are in the facilitator's hands for the day. And depending on the retreat, there are a lot of outings. And I know Regina especially loves to show people, Colorado and the beauty around here. When you were here, I mean, Garden of the Gods or the sand dunes, those are kind of far away, but there are closer places that the facilitators will take people to as part of the retreat, and maybe go to Lathrop State Park, for example, but bring the, chairs. And so it's not just a field trip. It's, the retreat is happening just in somewhere in nature. And that's something that I know a lot of participants, everybody just, I'm looking at the front door if I'm looking this way, and people come in after their outing and they're just beaming and just like, they're happy to be home. They just had so much fun being out. They're just bubbly and alive and just, I think, amazed at the beauty around here. and to be in retreat in that environment. And it's fun. We just get to receive all the hugs, give hugs, see all the smiles, and also tears and quiet. So sometimes like at a meal, sometimes it's very bubbly, and other times there might even just be a couple of people who are just extremely quiet, and you know that people need integration time and just to be with whatever has been happening downstairs and then what happens in yourself. And it's just really beautiful to be a part of witnessing all of that. So our part is so cool to like hold the space and, I don't know, observe.
Yeah, witnessing. We are witnessing how people are actually coming open in a group where there is freedom. And that is our natural state, I think. People come to a natural state if they are in a group where you can actually be yourself. Most people come also from an environment where they cannot always explain what is happening inside or what their direction is. And here they meet people who are tuned in the same vibration, actually. And I don't know. I just did witnessing how people blooming actually in a group.
Yeah,
in joining, and that's a blessing for us.
it is.
It is. It's like you're caretakers of the retreat house and caretakers of the vibrational space of the now moment and the unfolding. You're caretakers of the blossoming as well. So I'm seeing this caretaker role on a deeper level. So.
Me too. I love how you just said
that. Thank you, Shana. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, any last things you want to mention or say, especially for those who maybe are somehow coming across this video on YouTube? They maybe not, they don't know about Awakening Together or the Retreat House, and they want to know more. And you just kind of want to tell them a little bit about why. I know Regina has said the Retreat House is all about taking your next steps with God. But if there's anything you have to add to that, any sentiments, anything you've seen from your own perspective, or why would anyone want to go to the Awakening Together retreat?
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought that up, because aside from retreats, I mean, that's all on our website. And next year we are just planning all the retreats for next year, which are going to be amazing. But I think that what's cool to know or to remember and to bring it into here is that people can come for a personal stay. And, you know, besides it just being a beautiful, there are mountain views no matter what window you look out of. So it's a beautiful place to come just to be in contemplation. So a quiet place for respite, just to be by yourself, journaling, reading, just a time away from your normal day-to-day life. It's just a place that exists, and you're so loved and cared for once you get here, you know. So we prepare meals, you can just rest, you don't have to worry about cooking or cleaning, you can just be. And I think that I don't know. I used to do it all the time. I would take a silent retreat every year, even just a few days by myself. And to know that places like this exist, I think is a gift, and worth knowing about.
Yeah.
And we welcome you. We'd love to have you come.
Yeah, we welcome absolutely everyone who want to come. And I see also you cannot miss it. If it is for you, you cannot miss it. So don't be afraid. God is able to speak to you if you have to come, and you will follow that. Yeah, that's the most safe way to say it. I feel so comforted by that. You will not miss it. Mm-hmm. When we came here to the retreat house, it was unexpected. A week before, we had no idea what our next step will be. So it was all arranged by the universe. And so trust also. And if you feel I have to come, just make the step. But you cannot miss it. That feels very safe. And you know it. You know it in your heart. If it is for you to come for a week or whatever the retreat is, but you're always welcome.
Yeah.
and I can feel that welcome. And one thing, aren't there scholarships available as well for those who maybe they want to try this out, but perhaps money might be a slight issue? Is that correct?
Yeah, whether it's for a personal stay, so for lodging, or for an organized retreat. If you're a member of Awakening Together, there are scholarship opportunities on our website. You can find more information about that too. Yes.
Well, thank you, Jane. Thank you, Peter. It was a joy to speak with you. Thank you for being our retreat house caretakers and for all that you do. It's a
Thank you.
blessing. You are a blessing.
I love it all.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Saina. Thank you for the interview and thought of us.
Yeah.